Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Darkest Fears podcast. And today, on episode 3, we are going to be talking about a 2022 American found footage horror film that was called The Outwaters. Now, this movie was written and directed by Robbie Banfitch, and he also starred in the movie as well. So everything was actually showed in from his perspective. The movie is presented as a found footage film from memory cards belonging to a group of friends who ventured into the Mojave Desert to shoot a music video, where they encountered mysterious and threatening phenomena. And I think this actually doesn't really cover what exactly happened. And I think that's really why I love this movie so much. The reason why I love this movie so much is because there's a lot that's left to be unexplained. And I think that's why a lot of people actually didn't even like this film, because they wanted everything to be shown to them. They wanted to, eat the film up, and they wanted to have everything have a big reveal, basically. But with cosmic horror, that's really not how things work. With cosmic horror, everything is, if it was shown to you, then you would go completely insane. Or at least that's how H.P. Lovecraft kind of explained it to us. So Robbie Banfitch kind of went with that in this film, and he kind of ran with it. And I think he did a marvelous job at depicting 4 friends in the middle of the Mojave Desert going through a hellish night. Now, the film opens up with a panicked 911 call, along with the visuals indicating that 4 main characters in the film, Robbie, Angela, Scott, and Michelle, are missing. The title card explains that the subsequent footage was found and recovered from 3 memory cards found in the Mojave Desert. Robbie is an aspiring filmmaker living in Los Angeles who has recruited his brother Scott and his friend Angela to help him shoot a music video for his friend Michelle in the Mojave Desert. Michelle is a musician, and she is writing this song that I guess she had written for her recently deceased mother. I guess it was something that her mother used to sing to her as a lullaby when they were children, and it helped her go to sleep. So it was kind of something that was special to her or whatever, and she wanted this music video to be special as well. So, as every found footage film, in the first 30 to 40 minutes, you get a lot of that character building. And this is nothing new in the genre. When I was done with the movie and I went to the forums and I saw a lot of people talking about it, that was one of the main complaints about the movie, which I didn't really understand, because we know what we're getting when we're going into a found footage film. There's going to be a lot of that character building in the beginning. It's because it's something that's shot from a human perspective. So what happens is when they are out in the Mojave Desert, they are shooting this music video, which I will say Robbie Banfitch is a fantastic cinematographer. He knows how to shoot wonderful shots. Like, I've never seen anything like this in a found footage film before. And I think that's what kind of sets this movie apart a little bit from other found footage films, because, with found footage, it's kind of like, oh, it's shot on all a handheld and, everything's shaky, everything's crazy, which you do get that in this movie. But when they're doing this music video and they're out shooting stills and other things, you get some really awesome shots. And I think that kind of sets this film apart. Another thing that I loved about this film was the audio. The audio was fantastic, and it helps carry this unexplained phenomena happening all around these characters. So how everything kind of starts is one night after their first night of shooting for this music video, they are out in the Mojave Desert. They got their tent set up and they're ready to go to sleep. Just as they're ready to go down, and they all of a sudden start hear these booms out in the midst of the distance in the mountains. Kind of off-putting for them because they're not really expecting anybody else to be in the area because it's in the middle of the desert, so who else could be out there? The booms kind of persist a bit, and they're still really distant away, so they're really not super concerned about what's going on, but, you know, they're kind of off-put by it. So the next day they're up and again, and, you know, they're doing the shoot for the music video. More amazing shots. You know, I think Robbie Banfitch has a knack for cinematography, and I think that is something that he really should look into and maybe direct another film that isn't found footage, because he really has a knack for it. The next night, you know, the same thing happens. The booms are louder this time. You know, they're more concerned because, you know, they seem closer to them. So they actually decide to go out into the desert and venture off to find out what this sound is. So when they go off into the darkness, that's when things take a hard left turn. And when this happens, we really see what happens through Robbie's eyes. And Robbie gets a chance to go through his own personal hell this night. So we see what he sees. And, you know, that's kind of one of the taglines of the movie: see what Robbie sees, or see what Angela sees, or see what Michelle sees. You know, that's kind of the theme that they have for the marketing of this film. And I think what's really interesting about this is because when Robbie is off having his own hellish night, you notice that the main characters are disconnected from him. It's like he sees them, and he notices that they may notice that he's there, but it's like they're completely oblivious as well. It's like they're experiencing their own night, you know, their own hell going through this night, which is a really interesting aspect, because it makes you think, when this happened and they went off into the distance, did they go through a wormhole? Did they go through a parallel time warp? Are they on their own timeline? You know, it makes you question a lot of things that's happening. And things become super chaotic throughout the night, and everything just kind of goes bonkers. You know, everybody loses their minds. You know, there's a lot of blood and there's a lot of gore. It's a complete mind fuck throughout the whole thing. And as the night progresses, it seems like it just becomes more and more of a bad acid trip. And you notice that there are also creatures at play here, which makes me believe, because I had read somewhere that somebody had this theory on the film that the booms that they had heard in the distance originally were possibly a breakout of war between us and maybe another dimension, or another, you know, species of alien, or, you know, subterranean beasts, something like that, you know. And when the war had broke off and they went off into the distance, they kind of went through these wormholes that these creatures had come from, and have become stuck in their own timelines, which is an interesting thought. And, you know, I can kind of maybe agree with a little bit of that, because I kind of got the feeling about, you know, with that. But the booms made me, when I first saw the movie, it made me think that something bigger was at play. it made me think that maybe there was a bigger creature underground that was maybe trying to break free. Maybe there was something underneath that had these mind control powers or something like that can make them go through these hellish hellscapes through their own minds. But the thing is that because it is a found footage film and you see everything through Robbie's camera, these things are actually happening. And it's really interesting to think that it's not just a trip. It's not just like, there's chemicals in the air or there's warfare. It's something that's really happening to these people. And I think what's really maybe going on is that there's a beast under the canyons that may be controlling all of this and maybe bringing forth something even more dangerous. But you don't really get to see it. You also see like these crustacean creatures that kind of give you a small glimpse, which that was another thing that I saw in the forums when I was done with the film, is that somebody had a huge complaint about the movie and during the night shots, because it was the only thing that you could see at the night shots is the light on the camera. So it was like kind of like looking through a peephole, which I was like, well, this is a found footage film. This is nothing new. This is shot through a human's perspective, through a camera. So it's not really that huge of a thing for me. And it wasn't that big of a complaint because I was kind of used to this and I love this genre, so I was not really put off by it. And I think Robbie Banfitch made this intentional because with cosmic horror, you're really not supposed to see everything. And that goes back to me loving the audio of the film, because the audio gives you a picture of what is happening around the characters. And that's why I think it's so brilliant. Now, a lot of people don't like found footage for these reasons, and I can get that, because a lot of people want to see what's happening. And I think that's the beauty of cosmic horror, is that you can't see what's happening. If you do, it's going to be worse for you. And that goes back to the whole H.P. Lovecraft thing. If you were to lay eyes upon this, you would go completely insane. And I think that's an interesting concept for me, because I've always had a love for the fear of the unknown. And that's why I think this movie is fantastic. And it brings this in spades. Now, the night progresses and it becomes like this horrible acid trip, and you go through these different wormholes. And somebody had a theory on this where Robbie is, every time he's brought back to the desert, is like he's being reborn back to life again. He goes through this wormhole, and he goes through that hellscape, and boom, he's back to life again, reborn. And then it's like a cycle. It repeats and it repeats and it repeats over and over again, except it's different timelines in different dimensions, till finally the ending. Now, the ending is really, really something to see, because it's a gut puncher. And I think that's what made this movie stand out that year. The ending is where Robbie finally emerges from the last wormhole, or whatever this is that's happening to him, and finally emerges through the desert one last time, and he sees all three of his friends basically just completely dismembered in front of him, the heads on stakes. And he walks off, and he's basically lost it at this point. It's like a feeling of like there's nothing more for me here. There's a feeling like, what else am I supposed to do? That I'm just stuck out here. I'm just gonna keep going through this cycle over and over and over again. So he finally he picks up what looks like this tooth, or like a shark tooth off of the ground. It must be something from one of the snakes that you see slithering about throughout the film. And he begins to cut himself. And you're filmed to his back, and you see him just cutting profusely over and over and over again. And then you realize eventually that you see that he has castrated himself, because you see his member fall to the floor. And then on top of that, which is kind of improbable, but he also begins to disembowel himself. He cuts open his stomach and spills his intestines. And then the film cuts and it's over. And I was just like, wow. I was like, what a fucking movie. And I was really impressed with it, and I was super excited about it. I went to the forums immediately, and I was like, man, this is a found footage film that has to be seen. And of course, there were haters out there. There were a lot of people that didn't like it. They didn't understand what was going on, and they, of course, didn't like some of the shots. I'm like, it's a found footage film. You're going to have that shaky cam thing going on. You're going to have that, well, I can't see everything. You've had that since Blair Witch. We can't keep complaining about the same thing over and over again. But I really give this film a solid 7.5 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think this is something that I will probably rewatch again. I've seen it once now, and I've taken some time to digest it. And I saw it Actually, I think I saw it the day that it came out on Screenbox, and I was really impressed. So I thank you again for joining me on Darkest Fears, and I hope to see you guys back, and so we can discuss more films and more directors. And if you wouldn't mind giving me a like and a subscribe, and hit that bell for the notifications when I release more videos, so that way we can keep in touch. Thank you again. You have a good one, guys.